What if God doesn't exist? What if everything you've ever believed is just an illusion? And what if atheists are right? For centuries, brilliant minds have questioned the very existence of God. From philosophers to scientists, skeptics have offered powerful arguments that challenge faith and belief. But are these arguments really airtight? Or are there deeper truths we've overlooked? In this video, we'll explore the most popular arguments against God's existence and how to respond to them thoughtfully, respectfully, and logically. Section 1. There is no evidence for God. This is perhaps the most common claim made by atheists. There's simply no evidence that God exists. But here's the problem. What do we mean by evidence? And what kind of evidence would even count? If someone demands scientific proof of God, like measuring God in a lab or observing him through a telescope, they're misunderstanding the kind of being God is. God, by definition, is not part of the physical universe. He's beyond it, transcendent. Expecting to find God through a microscope is like expecting to detect Shakespeare by chemically analyzing his ink. You're asking the wrong tool to answer the wrong question. Philosophers like William Lane Craig argue that there is evidence for God. But it comes in philosophical and experiential forms. The origin of the universe, cosmological argument. The fine-tuning of physical laws, teleological argument. The existence of objective morality. Personal experiences of God across cultures and history. So is there scientific evidence for God? Maybe not in a test tube. But is there rational evidence for believing in God? Absolutely. Section 2. Science explains everything. We don't need God. This argument goes like this. We used to believe God caused lightning, sickness, and the stars. But now we have science to explain everything. God is no longer needed. This is what some call the God of the gaps argument. When we don't understand something, we insert God, and when science fills the gap, God disappears. But here's the flaw. Science explains the how, but it doesn't explain the why. For example, science can explain how a car works, its engine, combustion, gears, but it can't explain why the car exists in the first place. That's a question for the creator or designer. In the same way, science explains the mechanisms of the universe, but it can't tell us why the universe exists at all, or why it follows laws in the first place. The atheist physicist Stephen Hawking once said, "Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing." But that begs the question, where did the law of gravity come from? Science is a tool. It answers many things, but it doesn't erase the need for a deeper explanation, one that points beyond the material. Balance Scale Section 3. The problem of evil. Visual. War, suffering, natural disasters. Narrator. If God exists, and He is all-loving and all-powerful, then why is there so much evil and suffering in the world? This is a painful and personal question, and no answer can take away the reality of grief. But let's think it through. Suppose God removed all evil and suffering immediately. That means no human could ever make a harmful choice. No one could lie, hurt, betray, steal, or kill. But that would also remove our freedom, and with it, love, courage, sacrifice, and responsibility. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Try to exclude the possibility of suffering, and you find that you have excluded life itself." Free will means the possibility of evil, but it also allows the possibility of love. Moreover, Christians believe that God didn't stay distant from suffering, He entered it. He took on flesh in Jesus and suffered the worst kind of evil on the cross, so that one day, suffering could be overcome. The problem of evil isn't a disproof of God. It's a deeper cry for God, for justice, meaning, and redemption. Military Helmet Section 4. Religion causes war and violence. Many skeptics say, religion has caused more harm than good. Just look at history. And yes, it's true. Religion has been misused in horrifying ways. The Crusades, the Inquisition, terrorism. But is that a reason to say God doesn't exist? That would be like saying science doesn't exist because people used chemistry to make bombs. Religion can be twisted, just like any powerful idea. But if we're fair, most of the 20th century's bloodshed came not from religion, but from atheistic regimes. Stalin's Soviet Union, Mao's Communist China, Pol Pot in Cambodia. These regimes killed tens of millions, not in the name of God, but in the rejection of Him. So the real issue isn't belief versus unbelief. It's the human heart, and whether that heart is formed by love, humility, and truth. Section 5. God is a psychological crutch, just wishful thinking. Sigmund Freud said that belief in God is just a projection of human desires, a father figure to comfort us in a scary world. Karl Marx called religion the opium of the people. In other words, God is made up because people want Him to be real. But here's the twist. Couldn't the opposite also be true? Maybe atheism is comforting because it removes accountability. No God, no judgment, just freedom to live however you want. So who's projecting now? Narrator. Psychological arguments cut both ways. Just because we want something to be true doesn't mean it is. And just because we don't want something to be true doesn't mean it isn't. We need to ask, is it true? What evidence supports it? What worldview best explains reality? Section 6. If God existed, we'd see Him. Visual. Empty sky. Someone shouting to the heavens. Narrator. Another common objection goes like this. If God is real, why doesn't He just show Himself? Right in the sky. Appear on TV. But think about it. If God revealed Himself in overwhelming, undeniable power, like shaking the skies or lighting up the oceans, would that create love or fear? Would people believe because they wanted to, or because they were forced to? God desires a relationship, not robots. He hides just enough to allow doubt, but reveals just enough to allow faith. As Blaise Pascal said, there is enough light for those who desire to see, and enough darkness for those who do not. God is not a spectacle. He is a person, inviting us to seek, to knock, to discover. Section 7. Evolution explains life. We don't need a creator. Some people argue, Darwin explained the origin of life. Natural selection replaces the need for a God. But let's be clear, even if evolution is true, that doesn't disprove God. Why? Because evolution explains the process, not the origin. Where did the matter come from? The energy? The laws of physics? And more importantly, how did life come from non-life? How did consciousness arise from chemicals? How did morality emerge from molecules? These are not biological questions. They're philosophical and metaphysical. Evolution may explain how species change, but it cannot explain why there is anything at all. Section 8. Morality is just a human invention. Visual. Courtroom. People debating right and wrong. Some atheists claim that morality is just a social construct, something humans made up to survive better. But if that's true, then there is no objective right or wrong. Murder, rape, genocide, torture? They're not really wrong, they're just culturally disapproved. Do we really believe that? When we say, this is evil, we appeal to something higher than opinion. We appeal to an objective moral law, something that transcends us. But if there's a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver. Atheism can describe morality, but it cannot ground it. Only God can do that. Section 9. Belief in God is just tradition. Another claim is that people believe in God only because they were raised that way. And it's true. Many people inherit their faith. But that doesn't mean the belief is false. You can say the same about atheism. Many people become atheists because their family or school or culture pushed them that way. So we're all shaped by environment. The real question is, have I questioned my beliefs? Have I examined the evidence for myself? Faith that survives questioning is stronger, not weaker. Conclusion. So, do these arguments disprove God? We've looked at the top arguments against God. No evidence. Science replaces faith. Evil and suffering. Religious violence. Wishful thinking. Lack of visibility. Evolution. Morality is fiction. Tradition over truth. Each argument raises important questions. But none of them prove that God doesn't exist. In fact, many of them point us toward deeper truths about meaning, freedom, justice, and love. Final invitation. Narrator. You may still have doubts. That's okay. Faith is not the absence of questions. It's the decision to trust, even with questions. If you're honestly seeking truth, keep searching. Ask, knock, wrestle with these ideas. Because the question of God, is the most important question you'll ever ask. If this video made you think, give it a like and share it with someone who's searching too. Leave a comment. What's the strongest or weakest argument you've heard against God? And don't forget to subscribe for more content on God, science, reason, and meaning. Until next time, keep asking, keep seeking, and never stop thinking.